We are live.
Then appropriate April 17th, back up to FY27 budget. It's the reading mix now. Well, that's starting. So you're going to walk us through some language.
Yes. So I handed out a document to the committee. This is or Secretary Nixon by fiscal. This is a document mostly of committee member requests. So when we get to each piece of language, I'll just defer to the member of the committee so they can go through it. And then there are a couple of things that are technical in nature in this document as well.
17 pages.
Yes. On the first page, you'll see a proposed section B 1101. This would be a contingent transaction list. So in sub B, you'll see that it, to the extent that there's an unallocated balance in the general fund, in FY27, 4.7 million would be transferred to the technology modernization special fund. Then 1 million would be transferred to the farm and forestry operations security special fund. 5 million would be transferred to the human services caseload reserve, and then 25 million would be reserved for future appropriation or transfer by the General Assembly for various needs deemed to be in the best interest of the public. And I would just note for the committee in line 5, you'll see a reference to the Department of Finance and Management executing the requirements of 2025 Action Result number 27, section B 103A1D. That's the 70.9 million that is being carried forward as part of the property tax buy down.
And the 30 million, where did that go?
The 30 million is just unreserved. So in the reserve section of the bill, there's language that says that 30 million is unreserved.
Okay. Any questions about that? That's the consensus line, which Richie, our center, was been continued to call the waterfall. Right. And then they're trying to get them not.
She did everything she wanted.
Okay, page 3. On page 3, so this would be a committee update to the proposed language in the House and GovRec. This would be expanding the allowable uses of the proposed state police radio equipment fund by adding in firearms. So this would make the purchase of firearms an allowable use of that fund, and also retain the proceeds from any sale of firearms in that fund.
You're okay with that?
On page 4, this would be a section directing the Department of Fish and Wildlife to, as part of its FY28 budget presentation, include information on the cost and schedule of radio equipment and firearm life cycle replacement, and recommendations for future funding, including establishing a new designated special fund for that purpose.
Very similar to the one we just went over.
Apologies.
Very similar to the one we just went over.
Yes. So the idea would be this would give Fish and Wildlife time to compile information to see if a similar fund would be necessary for that department. On page 5, this is a section that would express intent language for the General Assembly relating to inflationary rate increases for the parent-child center network, and dictate that such increases would be intended to be calculated based on the network's integrated block grant to the 15 parent-child centers that provide 8 core services required pursuant to 32 VSA 3701D. I believe this is a proposal from Senator.
What's his name?
Senator Birchlick.
Yes, this would kind of put the parent-child center, same kind of formulation at the end of DAs, so they're not always trying to see you separately. That's kind of cute, but it's not like.
On page 6, this is proposed language designating $85,000 of the appropriation in section B 338 for a grant to Janice Promise to support reentry services. This was a proposal from Senator Westman.
What's the,
State president was yet the great. They've expressed some concern about the brand. So it's the create a conversation and conference.
what is the, I was asking what the appropriation section B 338 is.
It's incorrections. Maybe it's the basis.
Is that B 338 corrections for all budget?
Oh, go ahead.
Correctional services, sort of their big appropriation for all of their.
Service that they. Okay. Yes, okay.
Section E 330 is also a proposal from Senator Westman. This would designate $100,000 of the appropriation in section B 330 to support a grant for startup costs for a new adult day program in Washington or Rutherford counties, or to support the cost of an existing adult day program to set capacity to serve more individuals. This was part of the proposal that the committee went through a moment ago.
Okay.
On page 8, this is language relating to Medicaid and staff needs assessment. So this would direct the Department for Children and Families to the Department for Vermont Health Access to report to the relevant standing committees on or before December 15th, 2026 on a needs assessment related to the implementation of HR 1 changes to staff and Medicaid work requirements. It would also direct the departments to update this report in calendar years 2027 and 2028 on a quarterly basis, so that the relevant standing committees will continue to get updated information on those impacts.
For the committee's information, this is the report you've had people talk to you about the Vested Sisters program. This will help us move towards that.
This is language that would direct the Department of Vermont Health Access to establish and distribute per member per month primary care case management payments in FY27. This proposal came from Senator Lyons.
That's needed for the contract of the timeline. Okay.
On page 11, this is language relating to a report from the Department of Human Resources to relevant standing committees on any recommendations for legislative action on amending statutes governing state employee compensation. So this relates on a report on the pay act formula and statute.
Talked about this a little bit when Commissioner of Human Resources has been here.
On page 12, the proposed change here, the committee won't see until page 13. The committee made updates to this language limiting the allowable use of the land facilities fund. This is a technical correction. There was an issue with the language the committee reviewed yesterday, where it would have prohibited the agency from using any amount from the fund that would be that would create the fund to be its total cumulative principal. And the current balance in the fund is lower than the cumulative principal, so that would have resulted in the agency not being able to use the fund for several years. So this new language states that the fund balance does not go below the prior year's ending fund balance. So it would essentially protect the purpose of the fund as it currently exists.
Does it start the process now, or is this something that happens every fiscal year?
This would dictate that in any fiscal year, uses from the fund cannot go above, cannot dig into the principal of the fund.
But it has the same impact that we wanted it.
Right, if it doesn't address the cumulative principal, which would have been an issue.
Okay.
On page 16, this is a proposal from Senator Westman. You'll see in sub B in section A 107, this is language that would state that any new positions authorized by the General Assembly in this legislative session shall be created on August 15th, 2026, provided that the consensus revenue forecast the emergency report adopts in July is not lower than that forecast which was adopted in January.
Just for the general.
Correct.
So I was wondering about when we say any new position. That would include like the VP position. So I thought we were going, when we talked about this before, it wasn't going to be all positions. Because there were some that we kind of had to do regardless of what the forecast. There was a revenue forecast. So I had that we were only going to do this for specifically the ones that would potentially lower general funds. So like the ones we talked about, for property, Secretary of State, that they, even though there was a general fund, they affect general fund, the direct tax, but other ones like the child care position, because we passed the bill saying they have to do it. Things like that.
I'm totally open. This was then created for the station, and quite frankly, the time frame.
Right.
This conversation, this is the first time I've seen this stuff.
Okay,
So,
okay, well, we'll work on this language before Tuesday.
yeah. Emily, we talked about this. I had almost given up because they were so busy. I didn't know if we were going to get to this. This is the first time I've seen it.
Okay.
So I think the push to do this was mine.
Yeah.
But
Can I have just one
Yeah.
thought? Appreciating the sentiment. My concern is that there's ambiguity around, if the revenue forecast is lower, then what happens? Are they just canceled? It's like keyboard, like what happens?
I would rather in that position, I would rather have the joint fiscal committee that will meet with everybody here.
I just think it should be clear
Yeah,
how,
perfect.
what's the
Right.
I
process.
totally get that. It was the first
Yeah,
time I've
understood,
seen
understood.
this.
Just want to make sure I put that in.
Yep. I think it's awkward if you hire more positions and then the revenue estimates are there.
And then I also wonder if the revenue forecast is lower, but it's lower by $7. I don't know if they ever do the forecast changes.
Well, maybe there's some discretion
Yes.
in the decision-making process.
Right, but we
Well, and
might just want to set a trigger, like if it's lower than, if the downgrade is 1% or something.
You could tie it to, again, having not thought a lot about this, it's a pretty new idea, but you could tie it to the rescission language itself triggers JFC involvement if it's a certain percent, the downgrade reaches a certain threshold. So you can tie that.
I would like that. That's
Yeah, so if it's so if it's a small, if the downgrade is small, the administration can handle it themselves. So you could, if it's a small downgrade, you leave it in their hands. If it's a larger downgrade, that would normally trigger JFC involvement. Tie the establishment conditions to that.
We'll do a threshold or a trigger and we'll be clear on the drug fiscal. And that'll be at the September meeting, I assume. As per the joint fiscal chair's request, we should let the chair
Yes,
that we contemplate.
yeah, and it would, sometimes at the September meeting, typically if you trigger a JFC rescission process. Not knowing off the top of my head, but that triggers the administration has a certain number of time, a certain period of time, I think, to submit a rescission to the joint fiscal committee. Joint fiscal committee has a certain number of weeks to respond to it. Usually happens before sometimes the initial submission is before the September meeting. Just try to
Right.
catch up immediately.
Also, the joint fiscal committee after the emergency meetings has to be by the end of July, which is like what this would do is not have as high people. There could be some step in between, say, yes, we want to have by September. If
But I assume to be the, September meeting, joint fiscal meets kind of the same day as the board.
Yep.
So they wouldn't have the time.
But they could say, we want to plan by September, or
Yeah.
you could set this.
We'll work on that. Does anybody have any questions, concerns?
We're done with this guy.
We'll try to begin on Tuesday when we vote on the bill. Well, the hope is do a straw poll thing. But then we'll actually have the real bill in front of us on Tuesday, and that's when we vote. But this will be something that will be different. Hopefully, we won't really have anything that's different, just kind of cleaned up. But that'll be one small change.
And it,
Yes, the final page touches on the same issue. So, I don't believe the committee needs to review it right now.
Kind of a short section compared to other years. Am I right?
This year and last year are both pretty long, effective date sections.
It seems pretty short for the big bill. But for other bills. Okay. Do you have a question?
but I was just gonna ask about the proposal of language that I submitted yesterday.
Yes, so the committee saw it yesterday, so I didn't include it in this package.
Okay.
Which one was that? Oh, yeah, we had four different, yeah, we were okay with.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wondering about the second page of this language. These, the E sections that are taking effect. Provided the revenue forecast is not lower. What are these sections?
These are, E100 is the general position creation
Okay.
section. And then the rest of those are the pool position, creation sections, except for the military positions. There are two sections that are creating military positions through the pool, and those are limited service. So those they're limited service predominantly in the federal funds, those positions, and this contract will still be created.
then we have another proposal here, it's not up, precedence. So we're gonna get, this is also Senator Lyon.
Yeah.
So yes, we just received this, from Senator Lyons. This would be a proposal to amend language that was in the House relating to supervised visitation programs, rather than splitting out, the specific uses of that allocation of funds. This would, consolidate it to be 367,500 to 6 existing community-based supervised visitation sites. And then specify that the remainder be used for start funding for additional sites in counties where programs do not currently exist.
So this was a request and a network, since the funding is somewhat reduced, that it may, rather than try to split it up here, to allow for it to go to PCF and then have it sent directly to the field, as a system.
You're good with it, I'm good with it. Any questions on this?
It's the same,
It's the same money. It's a little bit. Yes. There was.
Did we, are we looking at the UPM struck language again? Okay, well, just, I'm pretty like thinking about the language piece.
Oh, we added it.
Man,
Yeah. They're not.
Was this, something that the network's been doing in the past, or just looked at with conjunction with the website?
The network that does do it in the past because they're, you see, they're listed as receiving $50,000 strikes through. I think it's different than the thing that you had been earlier, the program.
I just wonder if they were involved with the same operations. Is it?
Yeah, well,
independently with the network, or is there the crime center that we service involved in this all, or just?
yeah, I think they're.
They're going to specify that here.
yeah, the crime victim services you mentioned, but in the struck out language, the network is. And this will, we said this is a change, this will be something in the conference committee if we get more information. Yes.
I mean, I don't oppose them.
But you're right, it does move off that,
Crime center.
yes.
Good. Any other language things? Amy, do you have things on our to-do list?
I was wondering if you wanted to talk about,
We have one.
it's been very in terms of
Yes.
any appropriation changes or.
So when we went through the web report, center lines with the district skipped the whole thing. So one thing, we make sure that you're okay with the entire AHS budget. Skip those sections. If there's anything in there that needs addressing.
I've been through it so many times.
Yeah. So we're trusting if there was something you would have brought it to me.
It's
And then there is 938, the big,
938, there's a work in progress in our facility.
so we're,
Policy.
so we're assuming the money isn't changing, but there's a question that you're not changing something to the base to one time or one time to base, or if you're doing any of that stuff, that we would need to know. Big them.
We are not doing that, but we haven't looked at it sufficiently. By not.
Once we pass this out, still out.
Understand. I'll look at it again. Over the weekend.
Better narcs.
Yeah, I just want to bring something up. I mean, as long as we're talking about the network, there was requested language on fund transfers. For instance, the general fund, $350,000 that goes through fine center. That's it, our crime center, and generally it passes straight to network anyways. It's they're requesting, this domestic sexual violence special fund. The grants to the members organization go straight through the Vermont network. Another, like to talk about it. I guess that'd be a conference. When the issue were.
You're saying this, I wasn't sure, this was the suggestion that House made, or that somebody wants to make now.
Now, so I'm just bringing it up. So if you all want to discuss it or bring it to the conference committee, or
Are you bringing it up because you want to see it, or you don't want to see it?
I haven't had opportunities to, I mean, I know what the fund is.
Okay.
I know it goes to the center president, I know it's passed through the network, to the network. I bet that it may be more comforting for them to see the actual language on it, what's going to push behind this.
Because it's
It's actually what that was.
the 101 untransferred.
This is from the next.
As long as we're on the network, I thought I'd bring it up here.
I'm sure that's a pretty,
Okay.
but this is a request from now.
And I'm not going to chime in one way or the other. But
Request.
both very good organizations, so it's just a conference committee discussion if you choose to have it.
Well, maybe we need some more time for that. We will, we'll talk about it. We make sure we understand it. We could maybe add we'll highlight it as a on Tuesday possible. That's the position and language of that. Anything else? People thought we'd be here till 5. How fast we are. I told people the committee is a great work. If there's no other comments from GFO or the committee members, then we'll adjourn.
I would just, we're gonna get you a bill by Tuesday. If Monday or Tuesday morning we find stuff, we'll make sure that we flag it all for the committee or you read through the bill. In case there are things that we find that you should get more coverage on, or that would be, something doesn't add up very much. We'll make sure to flag all of that. So this isn't be a component, and we'll have an actual bill by Tuesday afternoon to review. And a million spreadsheets, well, so many spreadsheets.
Files, spreadsheets, we already got. Ray, did you have another comment?
No, I think there are a couple of things I need to touch base with members and then go offline about.
Okay. You thought any stuff that we need to address today, or we should address it?
If the committee would want to go through H951 language that's currently in the bill that the committee didn't close out, or we can flag those sections on Tuesday for the committee to review final time.
Okay. What were those? Were there a whole bunch of sections?
There's a number of sections that were held up. I think most of it was addressed, your conversation with Senator Lyon through me to. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I think we're assuming those are okay. There weren't big changes. I remember. Okay, so we wanted to do a straw poll, so we'll go around the room. That's the fun one. I have to quit the problem. Not having it very nice.
Not sure again.
Ready? No, we'll go around, ready? Just how you're feeling about your vote. I like that. How many is? Okay. Ready?
That would be a yes.
Yes. How you feeling? Yeah. Okay, good.
I didn't see what you.
I thought you were gonna like psych us out there. Okay.
I was on that.
I will line also that's yes. So straw poll is unanimous. Okay, so with that, we can,